Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Tampa City Council special call meeting to order. If we could please just have a moment of silence. Thank you very much, and if you are able to, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Vieira. Here. Goods. Carlson.
Here.
Dingfelder. Citro. Here. Miranda. Here. Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Tampa City Council. Martin Shelby, the City Council Attorney. Today is March 8th of 2021, and the purpose of today's meeting is relating to the notice of intent to suspend the sale of alcoholic beverages pursuant to 27-318, the City of Tampa Land Development Code. It is a special call meeting, and it is being held during the COVID-19 state of emergency and conducted live with an in-person quorum present in City Council chambers. However, in response to the COVID-19 restrictions, members of the public are encouraged to participate virtually through video teleconferencing referred to by State of Florida statutes and rules as communications media technology. The meeting is held in accordance with emergency rules of procedure as adopted by Resolution number 2020-225, as amended by Resolution number 2020-490. Now, the public is able to view this on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the internet at tampa.gov/livestream. Now, today you're going to be taking up quasi-judicial matters. There is a process to do that, and for those who want to participate remotely, it required pre-registering in advance of the meeting. The instructions to do so are available on the city's website at tampa.gov/quasi, QUASI. Now, as I said, those who want to participate can either do so remotely, but those who don't have the ability to participate or choose to do so can come to the second floor of 315 East Kennedy Boulevard here at Old City Hall, where we have technology set up to have communications media technology so they can participate, people can participate and take part in the meetings. There have been any written documents that have been received, have been distributed to City Council, and will be included in the record of today's meeting. Mr. Chairman, I believe that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Goods. Oh, I'm sorry. Just to put into the record that Councilmember Dingfelder will not be participating today, not virtually, not in person, and we just wanted to make note of that. Before we begin, Ms. Grimes, I see you on the line. Do you have anything at this time?
Yes, sir. I was just going to do a brief introduction as to how these hearings will transpire compared to previous ones.
Could I have a motion to open the
All right,
hearings?
we have a motion to open items 1 through 7. Motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, any opposed? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you. Gina Grimes, City Attorney. The hearings on your agenda today relate to 5 different AB establishments that received citations for failure to enforce the city's health law requiring wearing of masks indoors. And I know there's 7 items on your agenda, but it's actually just 5 different establishments. So after watching the last 2 sets of hearings and the amount of time that City Council has dedicated to this matter, and in an effort to conserve your time, we reevaluated these last 5 cases and strive to negotiate with each of the establishments to arrive at a settlement so that we wouldn't have to have full evidentiary hearings this morning. And we're happy to report to you that we have negotiated a proposed stipulated settlement and order for all 5 establishments as to the 2 issues that City Council considers, and that's number 1, whether a violation occurred, and number 2, the appropriate penalty, and that's consistent with your previous determinations. And I just want to take a minute to say that we believe that this strong enforcement action that City Council has taken in the previous cases definitely had the effect that was intended, and that was to motivate all alcoholic beverage establishments to address and enforce the city's health law requiring wearing of masks indoors. And that's why you're seeing this morning the willingness of those establishments to enter into a settlement on this subject. During the last 2 weekends, the code enforcement and TBD inspections of all the AB establishments, approximately 75 establishments each Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. So for each of those 3 nights during the last 3 weekends, we're seeing almost 100% compliance with the health law requiring masks indoors. So again, I want to thank all of you for your willingness to undertake this process, and that it sends a strong signal to AB establishments that the city takes seriously enforcement of the conditions that they place on AB establishments. And I think that the action this morning too is especially critical with the upcoming spring breaks for colleges, since college students comprise a large demographic of the customers of these different establishments. So with that, just want to explain, as mentioned, we've been in settlement negotiations. As far as structuring these settlements, we evaluated each of these cases using the same 2-step process that council's obligated to follow. First, we have reevaluated it, determining whether a violation occurred, and second, if so, what penalty was appropriate. And in evaluating whether a violation occurred, we re-examined the evidence that we had with a focus just on mask wearing. So what I mean by that is we weren't as concerned as to whether or not there was dancing or congregating in certain areas or standing at a bar. As long as the customers were wearing masks, that's all the city's enforcement efforts were intended to ensure. So then going on to how we determined the appropriate penalty, we considered not just City Council's previous actions in their previous hearings, but also there's 3 criteria in Code Section 27318C1, and that is you're supposed to consider in determining the penalty, you're supposed to consider the gravity of the violation, the actions taken by the violator to correct it, and then previous violations committed by the violator. So that's how, that's just an outline of how we structured each one of these settlement proposals. And so with that, I'd like to begin with the first one, which is the writs. This one is a unique situation because as we went back and looked, reevaluated the evidence, it was determined that the citations were almost entirely for failure to social distance, and that the patrons were wearing masks when, for instance, they were dancing or when they were standing at a bar. So since mask wearing was the primary goal of this health law and masks were worn, we have stipulated to a finding of no violation and thus no penalty. And probably the biggest influence on that determination was the strong enforcement plan that was implemented by the writs. And when they're up for their hearing, I'm going to ask that their representative briefly present to council what their enforcement plan entails. And the reason for that is because we've heard a lot about the challenges that operators face in enforcing the health requirement for wearing masks indoors. But I think it's equally important for you all to understand the type of safety measures and enforcement plans that are necessary and are possible. So with that, I will ask the representative from the writs to make their presentation, brief presentation about their safety plan, and then I'll turn it over to Kate Wells after that to address the other 4 settlements.
Thank you very much. And sir, if you would raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman,
Yes?
just for the purposes of council following along with regard to the writs, I believe that's numbers 2 and 4 on the agenda. Is that correct, Ms. Wells? Yes.
Yep.
2 and 4 are what's before council now. Thank you.
All right, please state your name, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning, council members. My name is Michael Cook. I'm with the law firm Greenberg Trarick, and we represent the business known as the Ritz. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. We also appreciate the work that the city has done, the city attorney's office, in working with us to resolve this by proposing a stipulation and an order that incorporates the revised, enhanced health and safety plan that we created. We think that that will be a good model for going forward with how to ensure that compliance is obtained. Just by way of background, the Ritz, when it started up again after the safer at home orders were lifted, developed a plan that it put in place and successfully implemented. In fact, there's no employee who's been diagnosed with COVID, and there's no, to the best of our knowledge, any indication that any case of COVID has been traced to the Ritz. They implemented that plan successfully, but they started receiving the citations of violation in early January of this year. At that time, the Ritz reached out to Greenberg Traurig, and we in turn turned to a global consulting firm that we've done work with in the past, and we put together with them in order to get some good scientific input on what the Ritz was doing and to improve it if necessary. We worked with them and we put together a team of 3 scientists. One is a board-certified PhD toxicologist. The other 2 are industrial hygienists, both certified, one of whom has expertise in respiratory issues. And we had them meet with the staff at the Ritz, go to the operations there and observe the operations, review the existing health and safety plan, and make recommendations on what else might be done. They did that. We implemented that and changed the plan. We also, the Ritz went to an extra measure of, at the end of February, the last weekend in February, they closed their operations voluntarily over the weekend, which involved canceling a couple of artists that they had booked for that weekend in order to bring the Ramboll, the consulting scientist, in to meet with the staff, train the staff further, make sure that the changes, the enhancements to the safety plan were being implemented, and they have been. And I think what we're pleased with is we intend with this order to incorporate a copy of the health and safety plan that into the order so that the city has assurance that as long as that order is being followed, that the Ritz will be operating in a safe manner. And I think the company also has assurance that it understands what it's required to do on a going forward basis. So we support what the city is proposing. We ask you to approve it. I think, Ms. Grimes, we sent some tweaks in language of the order itself that I'm sure we can get resolved, but we're fully in support of going forward in this manner.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions or comments from council members? No? Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item, which is 2 and 4 combined? This is for the Ritz Ybor.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest, because this is a quasi-judicial matter, and it appears that this is a settlement, perhaps the discussion can be limited to what's before City Council as to whether to accept and move forward with the settlement.
Okay, so the subject matter will be limited to the settlement that's being discussed. Questions or comments from council members? Councilman Goods? No? All right, do we need a motion to, yes, Mr. Shelby?
Just to be clear that there was no one in the public who was prepared to speak on this, is that correct?
Is there anybody that wishes to speak on the settlement? Yes.
Chair, yes, I do have people here that would like to speak.
On the settlement, they want to discuss the settlement?
That's what they've said.
And
Okay.
how many people, if I may inquire?
How many people?
And Mr. Chairman, if you want to limit the time, or this council can limit the time to less than 3 minutes if it chooses.
Council, do you wish to reduce the time to 2 minutes per speaker? Councilman Vieira?
I mean, ultimately, that'll be up to the chair, but I would say no. I mean, this is a very narrowly tailored issue, and if the public comes out here for this, unless if we have a huge amount of people, I think that would probably save us 4 minutes at the detriment of the public, frankly.
All right, we'll stick with the 3 minutes. Go ahead, ma'am.
Chair, it looks like we have 6 people here to speak.
And they want to speak on this item? Okay, go ahead.
May I
Bring up
just
the
add, may I
first-
just
Yes,
make
yes.
an inquiry? Is it for each of the hearings, or they just want to speak to this hearing?
Let me check.
Marty, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Marty, what are you going to do if somebody speaks off topic?
We're wasting more time discussing that. We might as well just hear the people.
Well, the thing is, here's my concern, counsel. My concern, counsel, is you're making a record, and this is being broadcast, and the question is, what is the appropriate comment? I mean, you could let people say whatever they wish, but the fact is, this is not a legislative matter. This is a quasi-judicial matter.
Councilman Vieira?
You know, just the fact is that we have parties that are voluntarily coming here for an agreement that they've reached, who are asking us to approve an agreement that they voluntarily reached with the city. I mean, if this city council doesn't approve that, then good Lord help us.
Yep, Lisa?
Yes, we have 6 people that said they would like to speak on this hearing, but then they also said they would like to make a general statement that would then pertain to the other hearings.
Very good. Let's get them up, and we'll begin with the first speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name. Go ahead.
My name is Griselda Bravo. I'm here in support of my fellow Americans who have small businesses. They are following all the mandates and regulations that you have demanded of them, but it seems that nothing is enough for you. Just as you may has come to here to speak to us, so I want to remind you that you work for us, American citizens, and you took an oath to respect and follow our American Constitution. Small businesses owners are law-abiding American citizens like us. We follow rules. We respect the law. And you, as authorities, at this difficult time, must support the development and growth of our city that include small businesses to add to its economic decline. Closing small businesses due to non-technical regulation do not honor the oath that you made when taking the position that you now occupy. So please do your duty efficiently. We do not demand less of you than that. Today in the news, the Dow Jones published the U.S. hospitalizations down about 70%. Also, the state of Texas is stopping the mandates. Mi nombre es Griselda Bravo, estoy acá en apoyo de mis compatriotas americanos que tienen pequeños negocios y que están haciendo todos los mandatos y regulaciones que ustedes les han exigido. Pero parece que nada es suficiente para ustedes. Así como ustedes nos hacen jurar la verdad en este City Council, así quiero recordarles que al tomar sus respectivos cargos para trabajar para nosotros, los ciudadanos americanos, ustedes hicieron un juramento de respetar y seguir nuestra Constitución americana. Los dueños de los pequeños negocios son ciudadanos americanos que respetan y siguen la ley, como nosotros. Ustedes como autoridades en estos momentos difíciles deben apoyar el desarrollo y crecimiento de nuestra ciudad, no en su decaimiento económico. Cerrar negocios por regulaciones sin sentido no hacen honor al juramento que ustedes hicieron al tomar el cargo que ahora ocupan. Así que por favor cumplan su deber de manera eficiente. Habiendo dicho esto, les informo que hoy día el Dow Jones publicó que las hospitalizaciones del COVID han declinado el 70%. Y también les recuerdo que en Texas el mandato de máscaras está siendo terminado y están haciendo los negocios. Sigamos el ejemplo de Texas. Gracias.
Ma'am, and before you go, if I didn't ask you to be sworn in, if you could raise your right hand and we'll swear you in.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I gave my testimony.
Very good. Thank you very much. We just needed it for the record. All right, next speaker, please, and when you come up, raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yeah. Did you hear that, sir?
No, I did not.
Oh, go ahead again, clerk.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Very good. Please state your name. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Fred Rock. I live in South Tampa for the last 35 years and have been a member for the last year and a half of Community Patriots of Tampa. We all pretty much are aware that the city of Tampa hosts the World Championship Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But what I don't know is if many people are aware that Tampa is the only city in Florida that has elevated the penalties to hurt local bar owners, knowing they have already been hurting for business for over a year since the pandemic started. Are we legislating for the people? Are we truly looking at the science? The local order states that patrons must be seated and can't stand at the bar or congregate on dance floors. Customers can only remove their masks if they are seated. How does code enforcement differentiate each bar or restaurant, since each and every situation is different? And we find ourselves back to that old, you can't get sick sitting down, but you can get sick standing up. Are we relying on code enforcement to make the decision on citizens as to when they are putting their masks on? What if they're having their very last drink that evening? Keith O'Connor, the city's neighborhood engagement manager, said enforcement has recently evolved to give officers discretion to warn bar owners if the only violation witnessed was masked customers standing on a dance floor instead of issuing a citation. After today's words before these opportunities to speak, it does sound like the city of Tampa has been listening and has been trying to be as fair as possible. But fair is a key word here. How many code enforcements are there? Is every single establishment being checked all over the city? And if so, is it possible that we as citizens may be able to see the report that tells us who was complying and who was not? And also, if you're going to put a business owner's livelihood in danger, is code enforcement properly educated and experienced enough to analyze each single procedure? Please help our businesses. Please stop violating their liberty and freedom and help figure out a way to help them keep their businesses in function. These establishments, these mom and pop owners are the heartbeat of our neighborhoods, the same neighborhoods you say you represent, and this is how they're being repaid for their vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please, and when you approach the lectern, please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm not, thank you for the time. And I'm not here to say don't wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, by all means, please do, if that makes you more comfortable. I wanted to get down to the reasoning of why all these mandates are happening, and I believe mostly they're altruistic. There might be some financial here. If we go, I've been quoted, and I looked up, that the reason for the public good and the right of government to do things for the public good health-wise and mandating goes back to a case, Jacobson versus Massachusetts. That's back in 1905. Jacobson refused to take his vaccine in 1897 and it went to the Supreme Court. He lost because Judge Harlan said it's necessary for the common good. The court emphasized that government officials were acting out of necessity as smallpox was prevalent and increasing in Cambridge. So the emergency situation justified the government taking these measures. Now, if we look at the smallpox risk, that disease was much more virulent than COVID. The mortality rate was 30% and higher, often in babies, with more of a legacy afterwards. Compared to COVID's, 99 to 97% recovery, depending on your age. Witness me. I've been living in Tampa for a year, moved in probably about the middle of all this, beginning of it, I mean. And I had COVID at 70 years old. I realize that I'm blessed genetically with good health, but I also make health decisions based on what's good for me. I don't smoke, I don't eat refined sugar, I eat very clean because my life experience tells me to make these choices for myself. However, many people wearing the mask, and actually on social media, so many times have said, go die, when we were arguing about the mask thing, go die boomer from COVID. Nice, huh? And at the same time, they might be taking health choices that are scientifically proven very bad. However, I'm not trying to diminish anybody's loss that they have sustained in family from COVID. In fact, our hearts go out to these people as they do in any deaths. But it also does not change the fact that a large portion of society has been mentally damaged from this last year in COVID. Probably every one of us have a certain extent of PTSD. Back when this started, I was so all on board, because it was flatten the curve. We don't want to overwhelm the system. And I think everybody got that, but now we've gone from flatten the curve, don't wear a mask, wear two masks, wear a mask even after 90% of the people get a vaccine.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Well, I'd like to take one moment just to sum up. I didn't realize I had that short of a period of time. These businesses are in a place where you're not. You don't have to worry about where your paycheck's coming from. They do. You've put them between a rock and a hard place, between two sections of society, one that wants to mask and ones that don't. And I'm just saying, let us make our choices.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next speaker, please. Please raise your right hand and we'll swear you in.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Please state your name.
Good morning, Jonathan Lee Riches, here in Tampa. Let's talk about this settlement. I don't agree with this settlement, and I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with it, because I don't think any of us should be here in the first place. I believe that mandatory mask laws are unconstitutional. I believe that this settlement is a waste of taxpayers' money. You are basically, the city of Tampa and their code enforcement is basically harassing these small businesses. Notice all the businesses that are being fined today or penalized today are small businesses. I don't see Walmart in here being penalized. I don't see Target. I was in Walmart on Dale Mabry the other day without a mask. There's hundreds of people walking around in these big corporation businesses without masks. Chili's, Applebee's, Sullivan Steakhouse, but you don't find them. You go after these small businesses and harass these small businesses, and then cause them emotional distress, cause them to hire attorneys to defend themselves. And I don't believe in masks. Look, this is a fashion statement right here. This is a fashion statement. You people, shame on the city council for dragging these people into this building and wasting their time and resources. These people are trying to feed their families. They're trying to feed their families, these businesses. They're trying to make a living. Unconstitutional mask mandates in the state, in the state of Florida is wide open. But in Tampa, you just want to go around and harass people. You want to harass people. This city council is harassing. You're harassing these small businesses. Stop. I hope every one of you people get sued by these businesses. And you know what? Not in your official capacities, because you guys are protected, because you know the taxpayers will foot your legal bills. I hope they all sue you in your individual capacities, to drag you in court and see how you feel. God bless America.
Thank you very much. All right, next speaker, please. Please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead. Please state your name. Go ahead.
Allie Marie. Yes, we are in a state of emergency, but it's not just COVID. It's also the death of small businesses, loss of wages for everyday people, among many other things, because we are experiencing political malpractice by those whom we've elected to serve and represent us, but instead choose to use their positions to turn recommendations into law and punish the people out of their own fear, their disdain of our governor and his policies, while hiding behind the general blanket of health and safety code instead of upholding our constitutionally protected rights as Americans. You are also forcing businesses to violate the federal law of ADA when a person with disabilities is removed or refused service from these establishments due to code enforcement not taking that federal law and exemptions into consideration and citing said businesses for a code violation resulting in discrimination of people with disabilities. This would also make code enforcement in violation of the mayor's executive order in paragraph 4, section L, as well as paragraph 9, section L of the Hillsborough County face covering order. If a bar or restaurant isn't threatened with revocation with a case of hepatitis B is present, and all that is required is for them to alert the health department and leave it up to the news to report, allowing customers to decide whether or not they want to patron that business, then why is this any different? Wearing seatbelts is a law. However, when someone's in a car accident and isn't wearing a seatbelt, City Council isn't doing quasi-hearings for car dealerships trying to revoke anything because they didn't post signs and force their customers to wear a seatbelt. So why is this any different? Wearing masks in a restaurant or a bar is not the same as rodents and insects in the establishment. It is also never on the customer to help that establishment rid of such things. So why are you trying to do that with this? A vote to revoke the moneymaker of a bar for not policing their customers and forcing social compliance, which is not a part of the code or ordinance, is a vote for government acting as a mafia and not as representatives of the people. This is coercion, and it's unethical. Adopting an executive order to an existing general, whatever you say is a violation code, because you don't agree with the governor's decision to have a state mask mandate and not fine individuals is forcing compliance and is not the job of elected public servants. That is you politicizing an illness, not those who question it. It shows your constituents that you want them to do as you say or else. And that is operating outside of the consent of the people, making it unjust, which deems such actions null and void. And since you want to revoke the moneymaker of small businesses, I would suggest we suspend your pay, since you're employed by taxpayers, until you can stop behaving like parents dealing with disobedience and behave accordingly as representatives of the people. Maj Touré says it best: a free nation must remain free by allowing its citizens to decide, not be forced. Anyone who doesn't understand that and would attempt to bully you into submission doesn't understand freedom. I'll actually take it a step further and add that those who force compliance are anti-freedom, thus being anti-American and are against the people and do not belong in public office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank
All
you.
right, go ahead. Please state your name.
My name is Vanessa Vasquez, and I'm here again to plead for the survival of these businesses. All the businesses are going to be presenting today. I'm here on their defense. We, the people of Tampa, have had enough of these bogus hearings, okay? And it looks very targeted, because code enforcement is not going to every single business to make sure that they're wearing their masks, okay? It just seems that that's our perspective as of right now, okay? The people are seeing this, and we're seeing it in that perspective, that you're targeting and specifically going after certain businesses. And it happens to be that the city council has a vendetta has a vendetta against these small businesses. The ones in Ybor, Soho, and just minority business owners in those areas. Is that your message? Okay, is that your message? These businesses have already gone through enough. Okay, 2020 was hard enough. These businesses have bought thousands of dollars worth of masks. They've posted signs. They've asked their customers to please wear them. What else do you want them to do? As you heard earlier today, that they've even consulted with scientists and things like that just to figure out how to do this properly, how to do this safely. But that's not good enough for City Council. I'm asking you guys to please, just, this really seems unfair. This seems unconstitutional and frankly un-American. Okay, we need to open up again. We need this to go back to normal. And to destroy these small businesses now would be devastating. The livelihoods of these business owners and the people that they employ, that's what you'd be shutting down. How would that be helping anyone at this point? So please, I ask you to vote with your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vieira.
For the sake of the public, because I think there's some, we hear about city council. Mr. Shelby, can you please inform, just go over procedurally how these cases came before city council, just so that, if you could.
Well, council, I believe I would defer to this. These are administratively brought to city council, and this is pursuant to 27-318 of the Code of Ordinances. This is as a result of them having the privilege of having alcoholic beverage special use permits. If you'd like to have more detail, I can certainly ask the city attorney to do that. But this is a process where the code ultimately gives the authority to the city council, but it is pursuant to the process that's set forth in city ordinance. If you'd like additional information, then perhaps. I certainly don't want to speak for the city attorney with regard to the process that brought them here.
Go ahead, Attorney. Yeah.
And city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but I get several emails a day saying, why don't you change the mask order? City council's not involved in the mask orders. We're under an emergency order right now by the mayor and by county commission. And if you like or don't like the mask order, contact the mayor and contact the county commission. What we're doing today is the city process, the code enforcement, which also works for the mayor, by the way. They have repeatedly, we'll hear the cases, but they've repeatedly gone to certain establishments and they've come back with these cases, and so we have to hear them in this quasi-judicial format. But I would encourage anybody who doesn't like the policy, you can send us 1,000 emails a day, but we don't have any control over the policy, so please send it to the mayor or the county commission.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else for public comment at this time?
No, there's no one present for public comment.
All right. The attorney that was here for the Ritz, if you'd like to come up, sir, and I believe we asked for a motion to close the public hearing and then a motion regarding the settlement, correct? Sir?
Mr. Chairman, Gina Grimes, City
Yes, ma'am.
Attorney. Just to be clear and concise as to what we're asking you to do, we are recommending in this case that there be a finding of no violation because their patrons were wearing masks. However, they were not social distancing, but our recommendation is a finding of no violation of the health law, and therefore no suspension is recommended. And but further, we are asking that their safety plan be approved and made a condition to their as ongoing compliance with that plan.
Thank you very much.
So
Councilman
moved.
Goods, Councilman Vieira.
I was going to move the recommendation from the city attorney.
Let's get a motion to close the public hearing
So
first.
moved.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Goods, second from Councilman Vieira. Was that a motion to close moments ago? Yes, sir. And a second from Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Councilman Goods, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership this morning. I move that we look at the recommendations and approve the recommendation of the city attorney with forthwith.
We have a motion from Councilman Goods. Was that a second from Councilman
Yes.
Citro? All right, roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Goods. Dingfelder. Maniscalco. Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda. Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
Mr. Chairman, that motion applied to both numbers 2
Yes,
and 4?
items 2 and items number 4, which have the same address and in the same business name, the Ritz Ybor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, Ms. Wells?
Good morning. For the record, Kate Wells, Chief Assistant City Attorney. I am here on item number 1. The establishment is known as McDinton's Irish Pub, located at 405 South Howard Avenue. I have provided council with a copy of the proposed settlement stipulation and order for your consideration. Just quick background, and not to go back over everything that Ms. Grimes said, but her comments certainly apply to each case that you will be hearing today. With respect to this item, a notice of intent was issued on January 7th, 2021 for violations that were found to have occurred on December 17th, 2020 and January 1st, 2021. Prior to that, however, code enforcement inspectors met with representatives of McDinton's on December 7th, 2020 and again on December 12th, 2020. The settlement before you, based on this one notice of intent, the parties have stipulated to a finding of a violation of Section 27-318, subsection C1F, which relates back to the health and safety regulations that apply to every wet zoning or special use permit issued where alcoholic beverages are allowed to be served and consumed. And based upon that one violation, as set out in the notice of intent, the suspension is for a proposed period of 3 consecutive days, commencing on Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at noon, and ending Sunday, March 21st, 2021 at 11:59 a.m. The proposed dates were presented to us by the Establishments Council, and the city was receptive to the proposed settlement, and we would ask for your approval this morning.
Any questions or comments from council members? Hearing none, do we have a representative for McDinton's here today?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
Please state your name and go ahead.
Rebecca Johns. I am counsel for McDinton's Irish Pub, Shannon Restaurant LLC, and Shannon Property Group LLC. We have presented a safety plan to the city attorney's office, which includes, as she stated, closing for those 3 days. Also, for the remainder of the time that the mayor's executive order is in effect, the inside of the establishment will be limited to reserved seating only. Patrons will be given a wristband if they have reserved seating. The only patrons that can go inside of the establishment, with the exception of going to the roped-off restroom, will be those patrons that have the wristband. Everyone will stay at their seat. There will be no mingling between the tables. Everyone will wear a face mask unless they are seated. The establishment will continue to provide face masks to those patrons that don't have one. They will continue to maintain their existing signage. They will continue to have the hand sanitizer stations throughout the establishment. And in the event that a patron is seen without a face mask and an employee notices it, an employee will approach them, tell them to wear the face mask. If the patron refuses to do so, they will be made to leave the building.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council members? Councilman Goods?
Good morning.
Good morning.
And you are accepting the stipulations with the city attorney in agreement to the stipulations?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilman Vieira?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, ma'am, for that presentation. So you are asking City Council to approve this?
Yes, sir.
I'm just making it clear.
We are respectfully requesting that you approve this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak on McDinton's Irish Pub, item number 1?
Move close.
We have a motion to close from Councilman
Second.
Good, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Chair, accept the stipulation of agreement with the city attorney's office and McDennis Irish Pub, Shannon Restaurant LLC.
Yes, sir. We have a motion from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Vieira. Roll call vote.
Miranda. Citro. Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Goulds.
Yes.
Vieira. Motion carried with Councilmember Dingfelder being absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is item number 3, Prana Ebor's Premier Night Spot.
And Mr. Chairman, Kate Wells, Chief Assistant City Attorney for the record, along with item 3, if we could also consider item number 5.
Wait, just a moment. Mr. Shelby, I saw your hand up.
No,
sir.
no, no, that was number 5. 3 and 5 together.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, yeah. So 3 and 5, same address, same business name. So just for the clarity of the record. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So the next item is with respect to an establishment known as Prama Ebor's Premier Night Spot, located at 1619 East 7th Avenue. The settlement before you for consideration is based upon 3 separate notices of intent that were issued. The first on January 14th, based upon violations found on January 1st and January 8th. The second notice of intent was issued on January 21st, 2021, based upon an offense found on January 15th, 2021, and January 17th, 2021. And finally, the third notice of intent was issued on January 27th, 2021, based upon an offense on January 23rd, 2021. Prior to that, code enforcement had met with representatives for Prana, on July 17th, 2020, and again on December 31st. Based upon the allegations in each of the notices of intent, the settlement before you provides for a finding of violations for each notice of intent, and the period of suspension is proposed to be 7 consecutive days, commencing April 5th and ending April 12th, 2021. And as with the prior settlements, a health and safety plan is included with the settlement, and continued compliance with that health and safety plan is a condition of the settlement. I'm available to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? No? Do we have an applicant for, or a representative for Prana? Mr. LaRoe, if you could please raise your right hand, we'll swear you in, sir.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, sir.
Great. So this negotiation was the result of a meeting that we had with the city attorney last week via Zoom, if you will, and then going over all of the different facts. And it was a struggle to actually agree to this, because my reading of the quotes in the provisions actually call for everything that my client has done. And I think it says that if you do all of the things of posting signage and making public announcements and requiring employees not to be accepted from wearing masks and make reasonable efforts. And in our meeting, we went through all of the different things that we had done. One concern that we had is we hate to get a worse deal than everybody else, which is why we thought the 7 days was a little generous. I don't know if the council would amend the consideration to the 3 days that seems to be the maximum penalty being considered, but all those things being said, we had actually put together, I think, a pretty elaborate safety plan. When we talked about this with the city, we established that this is a 5-story building. It has a capacity of over 800, and that without any pressure, and certainly not required by the governor, we limit the occupancy to no more than 500. There is signage everywhere on the club. In fact, there are 2 very large video screens that continuously display the mask requirements. They advise patrons that the masks are strictly required. And in fact, they kept a log of all of the uncooperative patrons that had been ejected. When we presented that to the city, there were over 120 people that had been ejected for noncompliance. And interestingly enough, 2 of those people felt that they should not have been ejected, and they hired attorneys, and we've received letters from their counsel saying that they were improperly ejected, so that's an additional expense. The one factor that we've concluded in our safety plan that we spoke about was before any executive order, in fact, back in August, in doing the research similar to my predecessors and trying to meet with the experts, we provided a air handler which cost $17,000, which was the best device for a business of that size that was recommended by the CDC. So without any warning, without knowing that there would ever be these issues, on their own, my clients voluntarily posted that and installed that air handler. In addition, we have a special cleaning and sanitizing service by a gentleman by the name of Mike Brown. He's a qualified over and above the usual maintenance that does all of the sanitizing of the facility. And then what we did is we showed photographs to the city of the extra tables and chairs that were purchased that were laid out across the dance floor to try to deter the dancing and provide additional seating for everybody that was there. And then lastly, we have thermometers used at the front door to detect any potential patron with any kind of problematic symptoms. And if they obviously have a temperature, then they're denied entry. We also presented to the city that we have 31 employees, 5 of which were added specifically to roam the facility and ensure strict compliance with the executive orders. And then lastly, we're trying to use all reasonable precautions to protect against the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So I like to think that in our get-together we presented a lot of different issues. The 4 extra days beyond the 3 are weekdays. I don't know if that makes that big a difference. Obviously, I don't want to deviate from an agreed-upon settlement. But if the council could see fit to try to at least maintain some consistency with the way that they're handling these cases, 3 days apparently being the maximum penalty given, a lot of people not getting any penalty. Maybe I can make an ore tennis, but I don't want to lose this deal, and I don't want to aggravate anybody by deviating from the discussions that we had. I'm just looking for equity and fairness here, and obviously we're doing everything we can to comply. I just want to say that it's impossible to comply with these requirements. If you have a place of public assembly and code enforcement is there and someone instantaneously gets up from their seat for whatever reason they decide and removes their mask to take a drink or to talk with a friend, there's just no time for anybody in management to ensure 100% compliance. And I think if you recall from the first time I had the privilege of addressing council, there's just no way to ensure strict compliance. You do your best. In fact, the language of the executive order says reasonable efforts. Reasonable efforts are just those. They have to be reasonable. They don't ensure 100% compliance. And I just want to make sure that this wraps up all of these prior issues, the prior citations that were handled. And again, we have gotten notices of appearance. We'll be in court on these same citations in June for arraignment. That's the only thing that is scheduled right now. But again, I'm just trying to work out the way that we don't risk the loss of substantial business. I already talked about all of the different suffering that my clients have gone through with the inability to be open from March 17th through September 25th of last year. So I will cede the floor, and I thank you for the privilege of making this presentation today.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goods and Councilman Citro, sir, do you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, at our last hearing, I talked about consistency. It's a key when you're dealing with a bunch of businesses to stay on track. I knew we'd get to this point. That's why I made that point last week about staying consistent. What I see here today, and I'm going to ask the city attorney about consistency, because now we have safety plans in place, which is a good idea, which we would have had from the get-go. But I think it's a great start now that people are putting plans in place. Maybe that's something at the end that we make a recommendation that staff maybe get out and have all these establishments give safety plans, and that way we won't go down this road. I would ask the city attorney, are they amenable to being consistent with the 3 days versus the 7 days? And if they have any objections to that, I would like to hear it before this council may intervene on that.
Mr. Chairman, Gina Grimes, I know Ms. Wells is going to address it, and I'd like to make a comment as well about the proposal. Go ahead, Ms. Wells.
If I may respond, we believe that we are being consistent. What is different between this item and others where council has imposed a 3-day suspension, this is based on 3 separate notices of intent that occurred, violations that occurred between January 1st and January 23rd, 5 separate instances. So the 3-day proposal is consistent where it's the first notice of intent. And those establishments likewise have submitted a health and safety plan. So I would submit that the proposed timeline is extremely consistent, if not somewhat conservative, based upon your prior action. And I would also submit that the 7-day period was proposed by Mr. LaRoe. We did not propose it to him. We asked him, and he has represented other establishments that did result in a 3-day suspension. He was the one who proposed the 7-day suspension to the city, and we accepted that based upon the fact that we have 3 separate notices of intent.
So let me get clear. Mr. Rowe, he approached the city in reference to the settlement of 7 days, and apparently the city's position is that we're being lenient on the administrative side because there were 3 separate violations, correct?
Yes, there were settlement discussions over a period of time. Initially, Mr. LaRoe proposed that any settlement not include a period of suspension and instead allow them to make a financial donation or allow the establishment to make a financial donation to a nonprofit that has been supporting COVID-related issues. When we looked at the provision in Chapter 27 with respect to this council's authority, your authority is limited to a suspension for a first violation anywhere up to 30 days. In this settlement, you will see that we have agreed to consider all 3 notices as that first violation. So even so, you've got 3 separate instances. A 7-day suspension is on the lower side of what this council can impose for a first violation, and we would ask for your approval.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Councilman Cedar, you had your hand up, and I saw Councilman Miranda's hand up.
I've got most of my questions answered. Mr. LaRoe, you will concur with what Ms. Kate Wells has said, and that this was done by the act of your client's own free will and accord? You
Yes.
said you had to struggle with it prior, and I just wanted to make sure that for the record that you are saying that it was done with their consent.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. LaRoe.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask the same questions my colleague Goods and Citro asked, and evidently there's a little discrepancy in one presentation and rebuttal on the other. Code enforcement, if I may ask them to clarify the record that of all the differences, are there any difference between 3 and 5 compared to 2 and 4 as far as the amount of citations given and opportunities to adhere to the fixture of the special item that the mayor proposed time back with the city's law?
Gina Grimes, City Attorney. The difference between this case, Prana, and the Ritz is that at the Ritz, they were cited for violating the social distancing requirements that's in the Board of County Commissioners executive order. The mayor's executive order does not have those same requirements dealing with social distancing, congregating at a bar, or dancing. Our concern is mask wearing, and so given that the Ritz violations were not for failure to wear masks, but instead for failure to social distance in an effort to be fair, we agreed to stipulate to a finding of no violation. And I want to say another thing about why are we all here? Why? It's not to punish businesses. In fact, just the opposite. The city did everything it could during the shutdown to facilitate businesses staying open and remaining in business. The reason we're here is because the cases spiked in December and enforcement efforts started, and most restaurants and bars complied with the requirement. There were a handful of establishments, AB establishments, that did not comply, and they ignored the educational and encouragement process. They ignored the formal warnings. They ignored the first citation. This establishment ignored the second citation. They even ignored the third citation, and it wasn't until then that we took this extreme measure, and granted, we believe it is extreme, but there was no other way to get their attention, comply with the law. And that's a condition to their wet zoning, is to comply with health laws. And so that's what we're asking this council to enforce. But we're not here by choice or to be heavy-handed. We're here really by default. We have no other way to get their attention to enforce this safety plan. We think that they definitely have gotten your message, our message, to do so, and that it's critical and it's important. So again, it's had this enforcement effort has had the effect that was intended, which is to get people to take the mask requirements seriously and to enforce it in their businesses. And let's all move forward after this. And Ms. Wells is correct. Mr. LaRoe came to us with a proposal for no suspension and to give us money. This isn't about getting money for whether it's money paid to the city or money paid to a not-for-profit. It's about getting the establishment to comply with the health law. And so he's agreed to do that. He proposed the 7-day suspension, not the city. We were actually surprised to see that he came back with that amount. So it's a little disingenuous, Mr. LaRoe, to say that it's inconsistent and not fair compared to others when you proposed that term as far as the suspension is concerned. So, council, I have no problem with you being consistent with, previous penalties and doing the same for this establishment, but just know that they're the ones that proposed the 7-day suspension timeframe.
I'm not trying to get a debate between two very well-qualified attorneys, but I can see that from what I understand what Ms. Grimes just said, that the difference is the amount of warning that we're giving prior to the citations themselves or the violation is a little different than was given to 2 and 4. And I would imagine that Mr. LaRoe, being the good attorney that he is, more likely came into an agreement after discussing it with his client. I'm only making an assumption, not a fact of law. And that's why I asked that question. Thank you very much, both of you.
Councilman Vieira.
Sure. Thank you, sir. And, with regards to negotiations and ultimately a request by Mr. LaRoe for 7 days versus 3 days, it was just that, a request, which I guess we can pay some deference. I'm not sure if there was anything signed or what have you, but a request that obviously is entitled to some level of deference. My big challenge with regards to looking at 3 versus 7 days, and now with this, what appears to be a last-minute request by Mr. LaRoe, is we haven't looked at, evidence, and we have to, or have a presentation on evidence, and we have to rely upon the assertions and representations of folks, and no problem relying on the representations of the city and Mr. LaRoe. I don't mean to infer that whatsoever, but in other words, we can't see everything one-on-one through a hearing. So, we appear to have an institution here that is, requesting for a finding of a violation, and then the issue seems to be whether it's 3 days or 7 days that are going to be going there. And I think we're dealing with a lot of different issues. And when I look at this plan put forth by Mr. LaRoe with regards to the efforts that have been taken after the fact, to, address this public health challenge, that's certainly something that obviously goes in the right way and costs a great deal of money, which also should be entitled to some deference. But just some thoughts in that regard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Goode.
Well said, Mr. Vieira. I'm not having difficulty because violations did occur. And I keep telling people, you can always mitigate, but did a violation occur? And that's what I said last time with council members. It's like saying if you got into a fight, did you strike somebody? Did the other person strike you? A battery did occur, or an affray occurred. There was a violation. Now, how do we mitigate it? 2 people fighting, one person struck the other. It's an affray. So now, how do we mitigate those circumstances? Both are charged, but now the mitigation comes secondly, because a violation did occur. Could be withheld, but a violation occurred. My take on this now, the bar owners and their attorney came in and agreed to 7 days. We've got some new policies that are put in place in reference to these safety plans and some other activities that are now going forward. and again, this is only my perspective, understanding that people are getting the message, I would be amenable to maybe 5 days versus 7, to give a little balance. Again, I respect the city attorney's decisions. That's why I asked what their recommendation did it stand. But I could be amenable to 5 days. But you have to be punished because you came forth to say that, you admitted you had violations. And that's just my take. I'll listen to other council members, but I just might take maybe 5 versus 7. And that's still being likely, according to Ms. Wells, and our apologies, because it could be more, up to 30 days. And with 3 violations, it could be more than that, technically. So I'd like to be fair. I'm just tired of hearing the public talking with this council. It's not our executive order. It's not our orders. We're just a judge now that these things are brought to us. Now we have to make a decision. We don't want to punish any business owners. We all are business owners. City has done a lot with trying to get money to help the small business. I remember I was a catalyst about the One Tampa. A catalyst about the number of years they wanted to impose on small businesses. And I said, no. A small business takes at least 3 to 5 years to grow. And the city agreed and brought that down. So I really want to hear about we're not trying to help the small business owners, because we did that. But we also have a health crisis. We want to make sure that people are safe, because sometimes people don't take care of themselves. People know things are bad, but then in time of crises, like, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have listened. But it's too late. It's too late. And Mr. Randall had experience about that. So we take this disease very seriously. Mr. Randall is almost 80 years old. God bless, he's still here. He's still here. I suffered. I struggled every day in the hospital. I suffered. So I have compassion for those who've lost loved ones. I have compassion about the Constitution. The Constitution hasn't always been fair to all people. Let's throw that out the window. Let's look at the real facts. If a rule is in place, can we follow the rules? And if we can't, let's find out how we can. If we don't have the resources, then we need to ask, how can we get some resources? Or how can someone show us how to put this safety plan, which I think is a marvelous idea, staff, to come up with this now. I think this is going to help a lot of business owners understand and get them on the right track. But again, I'm amenable if other council members want to chime in, maybe 5 days from Mr. LaRue and his group, just to try to show the public and show that we are not the bad guys in this situation, but we have to be the bad guys at some point to look out for everybody. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Vieira.
If anybody wants to speak before I do, because I've already spoken, I just want to make sure.
Anybody else?
Please, go ahead, Councilman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for that. And, just a couple of thoughts on things that we hear with regards to the small steps that the public can take to prevent the spread of COVID-19, a pandemic, representing a pandemic that has killed over 500,000 of our fellow Americans. Wear masks, wash your hands, be socially distant, and whenever comes your time, get vaccinated. I have not been infected with COVID-19. My time could come, who knows, right? But I always do that, and I say that the reason why we take steps to protect the public is for the vulnerable and for the at risk. I think of 3 people in my life. I think of my mother, who is in her 70s, our senior citizens, the men and the women who raised us. I think of my brother Juan, who is mentally and intellectually disabled, and different people like him who have disabilities and pre-existing conditions and are more vulnerable because of so many different challenges to the harms of COVID-19. And I think of people like my good friend Mick, who is a Vietnam veteran, decorated a Marine, and who has cancer from Agent Orange. Everywhere Mick goes, he wears a mask with the sign of the United States Marine Corps on there, and he always asks that other people around him wear masks. And Mick, who went to Vietnam and was in combat, won't step into a restaurant where people aren't masked. We do these things for people like my mom, for people like Juan, my brother, and for people like Mick the Marine. That's why we do things. But we got to do things in a way that's also common sense and implementation and whatnot. And, you know, I look at this business and this establishment and the steps that they've taken afterwards. And again, I got a problem, which is, you know, we're being asked to deviate just a little bit from what may have been agreed to in one form or another, right, without looking at the larger picture. You know, part of the picture that I look at is that this establishment has taken steps to remedy challenges that were there, and we also have to make sure in assessing this a penalty and a violation phase that we, you know, take care of other exterior issues and try to mitigate the harm that could come to other people, including people that work at this establishment from there. So, you know, some level of penalty, because that's, again, the defendant, I put that in quotes, is asking us to enter into an agreement with some level of penalty. The issue is going to be, where do we go from there?
Ms. Wells.
If I may respond to that, you said something that caught my attention. You said this may have been agreed to. This was not only agreed to, this was offered by Mr. LaRoe. So what is before you is not a proposal from the city that we're imposing upon the establishment. This came from the establishment. And I believe the 7 days was thoughtful on their part, recognizing that other establishments represented by Mr. LaRoe got 3 days for one notice of intent. This is 3 over a month-long period. So I would ask this council to approve the settlement stipulation that they offered, that they have stipulated to, that you approve it as submitted.
And if
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Ms. Wells, thank you for that. I misspoke when I said that, and I believe after I said that, I amended my remarks, so you're 100% right. It wasn't, when I said that, I was like, no, wait, they did agree to it. So I believe I amended that, and I originally misspoke, but thank you for that. Thank you.
Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item? This is for Prana. I don't believe we have anybody. Do we have a motion to close?
Second.
Motion to close from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What is the pleasure of council? Would anybody like to make a motion to agree to what was stated? Councilman Carlson, sir?
Yes, I would like to agree to make a motion to agree to the settlement as presented by council.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Citro. Roll call.
If I may, what council, because we have two councils, is that Mr. LaRoe or the city attorney?
Sorry, the city, Ms. Wells and
Okay.
the city attorneys, thank you.
That was presented by Mr. LaRoe and agreed upon by his client.
Yes.
All right, we have the motion and the second. Roll call vote.
Goods,
Let's go, I'm gonna go with yes.
Vieira,
I'd rather have a few less days on principle. I'll vote no, and if there's, vote no for now.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder. Motion carried with Councilmember Vieira voting no and Councilmember Dingfelder being absent.
All right, next is Club Sky, followed by King Corona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 6 is Club Sky, located at 1509 East 8th Avenue. This item is before you based upon 2 separate notices that were issued. The first one issued on January 21st, 2021, which covered offenses that occurred on January 3rd and January 17th of 2021. The second notice of intent was issued on January 27th, 2021, for an offense that occurred on January 24th, 2021. Prior to the citations and the notices being issued, code enforcement inspectors met with representatives for Club Sky on December 12th and again on December 31st of 2020. The stipulated settlement and order that is before you includes a finding of violations of Section 27-318, subsection C1F, and proposes a suspension for 3 consecutive days commencing tomorrow, Tuesday, March 9th. Also included in the settlement is the establishment's proposed health and safety plan, which they have agreed to continue to comply with their own plan. I ask for your approval.
Thank you very much, sir. Please raise your right hand and we'll swear you in.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Mike Nelson, law firm of Nelson, Biscani, McLean, 1005 North Marion. I want to thank the attorneys for the city who worked through the plan. The plan is outlined in Exhibit B of the settlement. The only other thing I wish to discuss, and actually Mr. LaRoe touched on it briefly, is for the clubs whose license are being suspended, I wonder if it's appropriate that the tickets may be dismissed. I think it's within the authority of the city to dismiss those citations. We're already paying a great penalty with everything we're doing with the safety plans, with hiring lawyers, with dealing with disgruntled patrons. We have gotten several letters from patrons who have been objected, threatening litigation. So it's a very expensive process. We also had a change out of the air conditioning and air filter systems. I'm not 100% sure of the cost, but I believe it was about $26,000. With all of these things, that I would just ask somebody consider the city council maybe discuss the possibility of not, piling on with the tickets, that maybe the tickets could get dismissed in light of. I did not say this previously to the city attorney. I just thought about it when Mr. LaRoe talked about it. I'm happy with the settlement. We will comply, but just food for thought. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Sir. Councilman Goods?
I heard from you and Mr. LaRoe keep saying that patrons may come back and sue you. I think you, as the business owner, you have the right to serve who you want to serve, correct?
Absolutely, but when asking somebody to leave, if they say no and then the bouncer comes over and they're getting their hands are laid on and they're forced to leave, especially younger people that may have imbibed some alcohol, yes, they're doing everything we can do.
That's two different issues. I understand about the bar scene, and we're talking two different issues in reference to how the bouncers deal with unruly patrons.
It's not, unruly for sure, but the mask thing especially. You go downstairs and you have people around the corner hollering about the mask. What do you think it is when they've had a couple drinks? You know what I mean?
I get it. I just wanted to hear that portion when you keep saying about litigation. I just wanted to hear what you were talking about.
Okay,
Thank
yes,
you,
sir.
Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson?
Ms. Wells, can you address his comment about the fines or the tickets, and if it's appropriate?
With regard to the enforcement of the citations, my office is continuing to look at how to handle those and whether or not it would be appropriate to resolve them without prosecution based upon these notices. But that is an ongoing analysis, and that's appropriately left with the city attorney's office for review.
So you don't need to come back to council for that? You can decide?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Anybody else? If not, I believe we have one person for public comment on this item. Councilman Citros?
Yes, if I can. Attorney, again, this agreement was of your client's own free will and accord.
Yes, sir, absolutely, and very happy to comply. They feel like they were complying, but the message has been received, efforts have been doubled. I do not believe you're going to have any further problem from Club Sky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We have the individual for public comment. Go ahead, please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi. I guess I can take this down now since I'm up here. I'm attorney Candace Colucci with the Colucci Law Group, and I would like to make a couple comments just in general. I was supposed to speak on Prana, but they didn't allow me to come up because they didn't know that I was here to speak on that. So this is for Prana, and this is for all of the nightclubs in general, and I think it should be made extremely clear to the board. I will start by saying thank you for all the work that you do. I know that it is a tireless effort to try to find that balance between the safety and
also allowing local businesses to still go forward. But I think it should be made extremely clear that there is an attempt for selective enforcement that is happening with the clubs in Ybor. And this is not the first time in history it's happened, and I don't know if it's because of the type of patrons that visit these establishments or just the idea that the public has turned and villainized Ybor for years on being this dangerous place that has also been a place that has provided jobs for thousands and thousands of local family members and friends, a place where people can come from all over the world to give money to the city in an effort to enjoy themselves just by coming down to Ybor. So it should be made very clear that what's happening is that on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, which are the key nights for Ybor when it comes to the nightclubs, the code enforcement is coming around twice a night to all of these businesses looking and trying to make these actual violations. And that has not been made clear. So most people in the city of Tampa, if you ask them what code enforcement looked like, they wouldn't know what they look like. But ask anybody in Ybor what they look like and they'll tell you exactly what they look like. This has not been something that has been equal going around, just like another person had said. Ask how many times they've been into other big businesses. So it becomes very, very disheartening when, because of COVID, these businesses were forced to shut down. So what really should be happening, what would be nice is for the board to say, okay, here we are now. We have laid the hammer down and we started that at the beginning of January, even though after the governor of DeSantis has come forward and made the emergency order months prior, where he said he was going to suspend all mask, penalties and fines, because he was so focused on making sure that small businesses were able to stay alive during this and had already been shut down. So in January, when the city decided to kind of crack down on the mask enforcements, they started giving a bunch of tickets over a small amount of time and then moved to start taking these wet zoning. At that point in time, the minute that they're in front of you, it should have been giving the deference to the fact of what have you guys been doing in an effort to be reasonable. And I can tell you, because I've seen the evidence, that the code enforcement walks into some of these establishments, are there all of 5 minutes, and then as soon as they see someone who violates, they take a picture. And I know the board seemed to be confused on what reasonable efforts were in those strict liability. And just because you see a picture with someone out without a mask does not mean that the establishment violated their obligation to take those reasonable efforts. So I understand the bigger issue here, and we're all concerned with health, but it should be made very, very clear to the board that this is not an equal opportunity for everybody. It really has been a focus for businesses, and that should be apparent to anybody looking at this, because ask how many businesses are here that are from Ybor. So it's just sad. So at this point, I would just hope that the board understands that that is what is happening.
Thank you very much.
And take that into account.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Anybody else for public comment? All right. Hearing none. Do you have anything else, sir?
No.
No? Do we have a motion to
Move to
close?
close.
Motion to close from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Aye. What is the pleasure of council? This is for Club Sky, item number 6.
Mr. Chair, on item number 6, I move that we agree to accept the agreement between Club Sky, located at 1509 East 8th Avenue in the city of Tampa.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro. Do
So
we have a
moved.
second? Second from Councilman Goods. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Vieira, Goods,
Yes.
Dingfelder. Motion carried unanimously with Councilmember Dingfelder being absent.
We thank the city council.
Thank you very much, sir. Item number 7, our final item of today, is for King Corona. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wells?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. King Corona Cigars, located at 1523 East 7th Avenue. This item is before you based upon a notice of intent that was issued on January 21st, 2021, based upon offenses that occurred on December 17th, 2020, and January 15th, 2021. Prior to the citations and the notice of intent being issued, code enforcement inspectors met with representatives for King Corona 3 times back in July when establishments were starting to open up again, and then again on December 31st, 2020. The settlement stipulation presented for your approval today includes a finding that there was a violation of Section 27-318, subsection C1F. However, that there shall not be a suspension based upon the notice and based upon the health and safety plan proposed by King Corona, which is incorporated into the settlement. I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, Mr. Michelini, I see you. Please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Counsel, as soon as the owner was aware of the citations, each of the employees were reviewed with all of the conditions that were required for compliance. You have copies of each of those stipulations signed by every employee of King Corona. You also have photographs of all of the signs that were posted around the establishment and the cautions that were given to employees as well as the patrons that enter the establishment. So we have been speaking with the legal department regarding all of these matters, and the stipulation agreement that you see before you is agreeable to the owner, and I respectfully request your approval.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the gentleman? Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item number 7, which is for King Corona Cigars?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Good, second from
Mr. Citro here.
Councilman Citro with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move item number 7 with the agreement with the city and the establishment.
Yes, sir. We have a
Second.
motion from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder? Maniscalco? Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Motion carried with Councilmember Councilmember Dingfelder being absent.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, counsel.
You have a question, Ms. Wells?
Yes, sir. That concludes all the cases. Yes, sir, Councilman Good.
Ms. Wells, I think you guys have done a great job in trying to negotiate these settlements. I applaud you for your efforts. I'm wondering now, going forward, in the executive order or a general order to the AV establishments of their safety plans, is that any thought for the future?
That hasn't been discussed. Frankly, that is a responsibility of each establishment under the current executive order. While the executive order identifies those minimum steps that are required to achieve compliance, which includes the signs that everybody talks about at the public entrances, it includes making masks available to patrons who may not otherwise have one. There's also, part of that executive order requires each establishment to make any other reasonable effort. So I think as a result of this process with the hearings before City Council, each establishment that has been issued a citation is looking at those steps that they can take in order to be proactive. And I think that reflects on the fact that I believe this weekend and last weekend no citations were issued as a result of the inspections that were conducted. Ms. Grimes at the beginning of today's meeting indicated that 75 inspections were done each night this weekend. So I think with this council's support, the enforcement is there, and it's especially important as we go into spring break.
I was just wondering, that way people can't say, well, I didn't know I was in violation. If you have their safety plans, or if there's just a general adherence to, they may not have to submit it to us, but at least have it on hand so if code goes there and review the plan. I'm just looking at options. That way we don't have to go down this road. So if your office just think of some things, and you're just trying to make things better for the small businesses and the general business in itself, making sure that everyone's in compliance and we're trying to follow a guideline.
We understand, and Keith O'Connor is also available this morning. I'm sure he's hearing your comments, and that's part of a conversation each time their code enforcement inspectors are meeting with the establishments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.